Our previous error discussion was about fragments, incomplete sentences, where the problem was we needed to add a subject or a verb to make the sentence be complete, make it be an independent clause so that it could stand on its own. These errors are not an issue with having complete sentences. That's not the problem. The problem is we have complete sentences, but we've put them together in such a way that leads to errors. So let's look at this simple example. I walk, I run. What's the problem with this? Well, we have two independent clauses, two complete sentences. I walk, I run. Yes, they're short, but remember they are sentences because they've got a subject and a verb. And we put them together with nothing. We just smashed them together. This is called a run-on sentence. So you need to have some punctuation, additional words, something that you can use to connect these sentences. So for example, and we'll go more into detail on how you connect sentences later. But for example, you could do a period and separate them. You could do a comma and a conjunction. We'll talk about these in, I believe, the next video. How about this one? I walk, then I run. You might say, well, at least we have the word then here to connect them. Unfortunately, then is not good enough to connect two complete sentences in this way. We'll go through the words that are good enough to do that, but then is not one of them. So we would still technically have a run-on sentence here. He visited the aquarium, stole a seal. So here, the difference between this and the other two is there's no second subject here. It doesn't repeat he or give us another subject, but we still have what could be called kind of a run-on / fragmenty kind of question. It's just a sentence. We haven't combined these together in a logical way. You could say something like, he visited the aquarium and stole a seal, for example. Wednesday is the day that my team is most productive. We end up finishing more than we accomplish on the other 4 days of the week. So again, sentence length, as we'll see, doesn't really have anything to do, just like it doesn't have anything to do with fragments. It doesn't have anything to do with whether a sentence is a run-on. Now, it turns out in this case, this is a run-on sentence, but you have to look at the structure. Notice we have two complete sentences. Here's the first sentence. Wednesday is the day that my team is most productive. Period. Complete. We end up finishing more than we accomplish on the other 4 days of the week. Period. Complete. And now notice we have just connected them with nothing. We just smashed them together. That's not good. And we'll talk about in the next video how we can combine those. So a run-on is when you have two independent clauses. Remember, these are sentences that stand on their own or can stand on their own. Smashed together with no attempt at fancy word coordination. And the next video is about coordination, which is basically about how you attach them properly with punctuation or other words. And as I said, length doesn't matter. So if we read this sentence, it's a really long, certainly wordy, descriptive sentence, but it's not technically a run-on because there's no two independent clauses, at least, connected improperly. John sat in the restaurant he loved as a child, a restaurant that reminded him of days spent walking the streets of the great city with his pals, wondering if he would ever see outside its walls, but he said nothing to his companion as they ate their meals in silence, melting in a summer heat undiminished by the puny, ineffectual air conditioner hanging limply on the shabby wall across the room. So, long sentence, a lot going on here, but structurally it's okay. If you break this down and you see how all the parts are connected, you would find that this is not a run-on sentence. It's not anything. It's a perfectly fine, valid sentence. Now, certainly it is very descriptive, to put it kindly, and maybe you would only see something like this in fiction because it's more artful, but it is legal. At least it would be if this were on the SAT, though you would never see a sentence this complex on the SAT. What about if we had just added a comma? So a lot of people say, okay, I understand that I can't just smash them together for no reason. I have to punctuate them somehow. What if I added a comma, such as I walk, comma, I run, or I walk, comma, then I run? And unfortunately, this is still an error. We call this error the comma splice. These are a bit trickier because it seems like the comma does the work we need it to do. It seems like this flows okay. You know, there's a comma there, so we take a breath or we pause and it seems to flow, seems to sound good, but structurally it's no better than a run-on. Really, a comma splice is a run-on sentence where we've just used a comma and nothing else. So only a comma to separate two complete sentences is not good enough. And let's look at some other examples. The Yankees played my high school baseball team, comma, we won. Two complete sentences, just separated with a comma, no good. That's not something that we can get away with. We would have to connect these with additional words or in a different way. And we'll talk more later about how we do that. Yogi Berra is nothing like Yogi Bear. He doesn't like picnic baskets. Again, we've got two complete sentences. Yogi Berra is nothing like Yogi Bear. He doesn't like picnic baskets. Two complete sentences just separated with a comma. No good. First, I will buy a Lamborghini. Second, I will buy a bucket of white paint. Finally, I will splash the leather interior of the Lambo with white paint. Just because we've structured this sentence with first, second, finally, to show the steps of some action, this is not a complete, or it's not a properly coordinated or punctuated sentence. We can't just use commas here to connect main sentences. No matter how good or smooth it sounds, it's about the structure. One group thought that the scientists were correct. Another group thought they were wrong. So here we have a contrast. So it seems like maybe we'd want to put a comma to separate these two contrasts. But again, that's not good enough. We've got two complete independent sentences. And when you've got two complete independent sentences, just a comma is not good enough. This is one that trips people up a lot. The paleontologists were stunned at their discovery. It meant that accepted theories were flawed. Just because this "it" refers right back to the discovery, it seems to connect directly, doesn't mean that we can connect, again, sound like a broken record, but two complete sentences separated with a comma. Just can't do that. You gotta have more. He needs to buy a new car, comma, this is due to the huge fire. Same kind of thing with the "it." This referring to, I guess, the fact that he's got to buy a new car. That in itself is kind of a problem. The "this," it's unclear what that refers to. But even holding that aside, two complete sentences separated with just a comma, can't do it. Last one. John put on his suit and tie. Then he grabbed his briefcase and closed the door. Like we saw previously, then with a comma is not a proper way to connect two sentences, two complete sentences. Even if we're showing the sequence of events, it's not, as we'll see in a second, one of the fanboys conjunctions. It's not one of the words we can use to connect two complete sentences. So like I said, in the next video, we're going to go over these examples again, and we're going to show the ways we can fix them, particularly by using what are called coordinating conjunctions. But just know you can't just smash two sentences together with no punctuation at all. That is wrong. But even a little bit more trickier, you can't just use a comma to connect two complete sentences. That is a comma splice, and that is incorrect. So always be looking out for your incomplete and complete sentences. Once you've determined that a sentence is complete, that it's independent, that it's not a fragment, then you have to look at how it's put together. And that's what these errors all have to do with. So let's move on to talking about coordination.